Welcome guys to the Versa methodology presentation. Today we will explain how the soft skills games model works and the origins of it, and also some details about the relationship between video games and achievements and soft skills development. Of course, if you have questions, please keep it to the end of the session. We will dedicate an entire half an hour of the time needed, to resolve all your doubts and questions. And regarding the Versa stuff, the Versa consortium, if you want to step in and just complement or say something while I'm speaking the methodology, you are more than welcome. So, before we start to explain specifically how the soft skills model work, I want to introduce you some studies and some investigations of the academic scientific community that highlights how is the positive influence of the video games to the development of soft skills. Okay, because it's a big step to understand in order to help you to understand later how the soft skills game model was built. Okay, so first of all, I want to introduce you this study from Gong and 2015, and they just took some players of esports games like League of Legends or Dota that some of you might know, and compare that performance in video games with another group of people that in this case were gamers that had a few experiences with video games. Okay, so the fMRI, the magnetic resonance show that the brain changes morphologically, okay, and physically changes. And this is super interesting because there were detected some enhancements in the precisely the functional connectivity of the insular regions and other networks. Okay? This is a neurologic terminology and some more biological nomenclature, but it's interesting how to see that precisely those changes, also in the gray matter volume of the insular subregions, imply or modify the attention and sensorimotor functions, like we were the people who were more used to play esports video games were more used to pay attention to more than one just stimulus at the time, and they were developing this attentional network more efficient in a more efficient way that the players that do not have this experience with video games. Okay, and the same goes with learning capacity and execution coordination in terms of the coordination of the brain and hand in order to play the video game, and the learning capacity in order to interiorize the different rules that makes the system to understand how the system works and obviously how we can interact with the system in order to solve the problems that are presented to us or something like that. Okay, but it is important, this study. I want to bring you this study specifically because it implies that the brain physically changes, and that's super relevant in psychology because just a few stimulus external of our body can make the brain, can make the brain bigger. So it's interesting. And precisely another kind of investigation that also involves more or the increasing of the gray matter precisely in the right hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex and the cerebellum behind. Just 1 second. Okay, welcome, Mustafa. Precisely these enhancements in those areas implies that the people were more spatially skilled, okay, meaning that they were more able to orientate themselves in a 3D environment, okay, just like going to a some place that we don't know and we don't have a map or something, and we can still orientate in that place. Okay, that is a skill that is also very present in all the gamers, on the platform games at least, in theory environments. And also has been seen an increasement on working memory, cognitive flexibility, attention, and blurring, same as before. We see that attention is a network that is very easy stimulated by video games, therefore is very developed by them. And also a better integration of external information with rules, okay? Rewards and strategies, that's it's the same as before, is to understand better the system and to identify what are the variables that are related to that system and how it interacts with each other, okay? And I wanted to bring you this one as well. It's the third one. There are four. Do not worry about that. But this one is interesting because it shows that video games can substitute the intelligence test for looking for the G score, no? The G factor, sorry, in psychology. That is the main intelligence indicator. And just Quiroga, that is a professor here from Spain, put some people to play to the Professor Layton, that it's a very family-friendly video game about puzzles in Nintendo DS, and they those group of students did some intelligence tests, and they also play the game. Okay, and what have been seen is that the people who get higher scores in intelligence test get the more problems solved in the puzzle, okay, and in the less time resolution. That's also interesting. So this video game, as I said, is presenting the opportunity to make the natural evolution about an assessment that was made with pen and pencil, no, with paper and pencil, and to transform it into a digital world in order to do it more accessible to all the people in the world, in order to do it more valid, because video games are also more complex than just a simple intelligence test. So we can be more specific and more, and therefore the results will be more valid if we just use in a complementary way at the moment the video games and the intelligence measure process. And the last one is related to some of the video games that precisely are involved in the Versa program. This is from Bar, one of the students also very known. And he just put some people to play for 8 weeks. That's a lot of time. For 8 weeks, a commercial video games like Portal 2, for example, that is involved in the Versa model world, or Team Fortress or Borderlands 2, that are like kind of shooters, or Go Home and Papers, Please, that are super interesting games about complex problem solving, and that's it. I mean, but this professor put the players to play some kind of video games, not only one kind of video game. Okay, that's also super interesting to know, because all the video games have different effects in soft skills development and in brain increasing. So he just wanted to know the general influence of the video games in the brain. And he related also with the soft skills reported results, okay, with a self-report survey that he used. And he was interested to see that those 8 weeks of play increased precisely the scores in communication, adaptability, or cognitive flexibility, again, and inventive, that can be understood as initiative or as commitment, something like that. Okay, so being seeing those studies that clarify and show us in a very clearly way how video games can positively influence the development of soft skills, and definitely they had an influence in our brains. We from Gecon.es wanted to do our research, or to replicate at least some parts of the academic scientific investigations that the people do. And we built something called X Budget, that was precisely a national project funded with the industry ministry here in Spain. And we just put some people to play Tetris, Pac-Man, and Flappy Bird, some hours, and we did the same as we do in Versa. We did a pre and a post module application of the standardized test as a control factor, as a control indicator of the development of soft skills. And the results were very interesting because we discovered, or we replicated the results precisely, that those video games had some kind of effects on the players' minds. Okay, so for example, Tetris was a factor that increased the spatial reasoning in the players, or Pac-Man, for example, reduced the risk-taking behavior in the players. That we at the beginning we thought that it will be reverse, it will increase the risk-taking, but we surprised ourselves with these results. So, anyways, we did this investigation, and we once more proved that video games are not just entertainment tools, and we wanted to go bigger. We wanted to go to more video games that are played with more frequency, because specifically Tetris, Pac-Man, and Flappy Bird, that those aren't video games that are played frequently. Are very old video games that are not very attractive to the actual audience of video games. So what we did is to build a model, an hypothetical model that describes the relationship between the achievements that we can obtain through a Steam digital platform that you all might know now, and how the achievements of this achievement would be related to the soft skills development. Okay, and we will see how. First of all, we wanted to do a massive or a bigger measurement, and that's why we went to Steam, because Steam has millions of players. I think that the last data about that is like 16 or 17 million players per day. It's an absolutely big number, and we wanted we were wondering if we could access that data that the players are generating hour by hour inside the game. And Steam technically has the power, or has the accessibility to do that, because other platforms like Blizzard, that you may know, for example, or Google Play, that is the mobile one, are more restricted in terms of data, and we can access the data that the players are generating. Okay, so in Steam, some of the video games, at least the majority of the video games, have associated the achievements feature in them. Okay, so most of the video games have that when you do in the game certain actions, an achievement pop up. Okay, but it's important to note that in order to achieve the achievement, you have to do certain actions, and this is the key to understand our model, because the model, the softskills.games model, measures that the actions that are precisely needed to achieve the achievement. Okay, and that's super important, because there are a lot of achievements that are easy to get, like, I don't know, in Dream Valley, for example, that people of Versa are playing now. There are one, I don't know exactly, but there might be one achievement in Dream Valley that might be just to get one train to a destination point, and that's it. Okay, and it is another achievement that, for example, is like managing 10 trains at the same time in just one level. Okay, so you can see now the difference between one achievement and another, and obviously one achievement, specifically the 10 trains managed at the same time, has more influence on the soft skills development than the simple one. And this is one factor that the model also takes into account in order to transform those achievements in soft skills experiences. Okay, because that's precisely what you can see in your profiles inside softskills.games when you activated all the games that you played, and all the experience accumulated in soft skills show up in the main graphic, both, and the temporal graphic that allows you to see when did you get that achievement and how your soft skills have been developed by that. Okay, but it is important to note also that it is an hypothetical model. So we are still proving our hypothesis, and we are still applying the pre and the post model application test, the standardized test, just to capture more data to prove that our hypotheses embedded inside the softskills.games platform are right, and if not, modify the algorithm and the experience amount of points of the soft skill X that relates with the test. Okay, so for example, in I don't know, you guys, if you participate in the module 1 of Versa, but some of the results of the module 1 indicates that according to the test, that the portal loss influence in the training improved the cognitive flexibility of a skill, but also the platform also is telling us that the players have been improving their soft skill of cognitive flexibility. So there are two types of information that match and are synchronized, and it's all good. But if for example in creativity, in the Versa second module, the tests were telling us that the players also increased the creativity of a skill, but the platform did not manage to manifest that increment. So we just apply some modifications into the creativity amount of experience in the Cities Skylines video game in order to match those results and say that the platform does a valid measurement like the test do. Okay, it's like that. And I wanted you to understand also that soft skills are not easy to understand, because much of the soft skills are concepts and are very abstracted and are very difficult to understand. Because, for example, one soft skill in Baghdad is one thing, and one soft skill here in Spain can be another thing, or even inside the country or inside the nation, one soft skill can be leadership, for example, can be one thing to one company, and leadership can be one other thing, other different thing in other company. So in a European point of view, there is a need, and there is a lot of money dedicated on this. There is a need to create a taxonomy or a global nomenclature or a global model of soft skills definition in order to make all Europe work with the same definitions and with the same soft skills. Okay, but it is still a work in progress, and it will take several years. And when we started this project 3 years ago now, 3 or 4 years ago now, we did what we call, is a bibliographic review, okay, and we looked into the most important taxonomy of soft skills at the moment, that were, for example, the future of jobs model that was born in the World Economic Forum of the European Commission, for example, the CHC definitions from psychology that explains precisely the cognitive abilities that are related to soft skills, like logical reasoning or induction, for example, etc. You can see the families here in the slide. And the third part of the taxonomy, that is the core SL competencies that are more related to the labor market, okay? Because obviously this is a super important part of the model as well, because we also reach the human resources companies in order to improve their soft skills in the labor market, that it is precisely where the need is, more than in academics. So I wanted to tell you more precisely how we measure the video games, and how we clarify the influence of specific soft skills relating specific mechanics in video games. Okay, this is Botanicula. It's just an adventure game when you have only to point and click. You can only play with your mouse, and it is pretty beautiful. And the gameplay is very simple, okay? And I want you to know how, for example, we relate Botanicula with complex problem solving. So those of you who have participated in the module 4 coaching dynamic will know that complex problem solving is more complex that it sounds, in fact. And here in Gecon.es we follow the Quesada's model, that is precisely several number of indicators or variables that must be present at the problem or situation in order to define that situation as a complex problem to solve, okay? And this is something that we apply to every game that we analyze, so we just can know if those indicators are present in the video game, and if that video game represents or influence better the complex problem solving soft skills, okay? So for example, this in Botanicula, we will compare then the Botanicula with the Dream Valley video game that is associated with the complex problem solving model in Versa. But for example, in Botanicula, there are problems that are not complex, because there are you have all the time you need in the problem to solve. There are a little few variables involved in the problem. The feedback is always immediate in the system, and you must not have skills external to the video game in order to solve the problem. Okay, so Botanicula presents problems that are not complex, and therefore Botanicula influences just a little bit the complex problem solving soft skill. And if you play, for example, Botanicula for a month, and if you play Dream Valley for a month, you will see in your charts in softskills.games that Dream Valley has a lot of influence, more influence than Botanicula precisely in complex problem solving, precisely because Dream Valley has present a lot of the indicators of the complex problem solving model of Quesada. Okay, and for example, relating the time, you know that in Dream Valley you can pause the time and you can accelerate the time. Definitely we can manipulate the time. Okay, but there are achievements inside Dream Valley that are not related to the variable of time, because they don't mention, or they just they don't have the time into account in order to you to get the achievement. But there are a lot of indicators, a lot of achievements that are time related. And for example, I remember one that is like you have to complete the game, one level accelerating the time per 4 or something like that. Okay, so that achievement inside the each video game, inside the Dream Valley video game, will have more influence in complex problem solving soft skill, because it has the time variable into account in order to you to get the achievement. Okay, and for example, Dream Valley also has a lot of variables inside the game that are related to every situation, and ergo to every problem to solve. Like you have to construct the train tracks, you have to manage all the train departures, even if they are not voluntary, because if you left the train for so long, they go independent and they go on their own. You have to manage your money to spend in the construction, or just to stay aware of not getting the zero money in order to beat the game, and the chain, and the time again, that is also considered a variable itself. So the presence of all the variables that are participating in the problem makes the problem more complex, and the feedback as well, because the feedback, Dream Valley does feedback, an immediate feedback, because for example, when you run out of money, the gamer tells you, okay, and when you are constructing the train tracks, the game also tells you. But for example, there is another kind of feedback that is precisely the not immediate. That is, for example, when you are managing the trains inside the level, and you want just one train to go ahead, but the feedback it is created at the time when that train gets to their station or collides with another train. So the feedback is not immediate in this case, and that makes the problem complex. And everything related with the psychological skills that, for example, as every video game, train value presents a good definition at the start with very few variables, and if you advance in the video game, it gets harder, adding precisely more variables and more difficulty to take into account and making the problem more complex to solve. Okay. And I wanted to bring you also the anomaly 2 video game that was the module 3 sorry, the module 3 video game. Then we related with goal setting and organizational skills. Okay, it's not critical thinking in this case. Also, it is also associated with that. But I wanted to bring, for example, the complex problem solving soft skill that is very analyzed and very investigated, and there are a lot of models that try to explain what a problem is. But for example, with goal setting and organizational skills, there are not too many investigations involved in this. So it just makes it difficult to disgregate and to make parameters of this soft skill, you know. But for example, we know that goal setting involves the definition of objectives inside the game, the information regarding the objectives. For example, if we know everything about the objectives, we just have to explore and adventure ourselves in order to get more information of the objective, and the planification, obviously, of the action and the execution of the planification inside the video game, and even the replanification and re-execution of our goals, no, of our achievements, in order to adapt to the new situations that video games is presenting to us. And the same goes with organizational skills, meaning that, for example, if a video game makes you stressful or frustration, you will have to be mature enough or emotionally intelligent enough to manage those negative situations and those negative emotions in order to keep the performance up, and that's also a part of organizational skills. Also with impulse control, self-motivation, or adaptability. So as you can know, for example, complex problem solving is a very investigated soft skills. Goal setting and organization skills are not. Therefore, there are more abstract concepts that are more difficult to land into the video games analyzation, but it also can be done. Okay, and that's, for example, we are just explaining a few associations with soft skills and video games. For example, Fallout Shelter, that is the video game that you will be playing in now in module 5, are associated with people and team management, because precisely people management is needed in assigning workers to their best position inside the shelter, and manage even their happiness in order to improve the shelter efficiency. Okay, so as you will see in the coaching dynamic as well, Fallout Shelter takes into account more than one variable related to team management that is used in the real world, is used in the labor markets, in the work life that you will see. So it is a good stimulation to that soft skill. And the same goes with portal doors that are related with cognitive flexibility, as you saw, and complex problem solving and coordination with others, just in the comp mode, because you cannot coordinate with others if you play alone. But for example, the problem solving involved in facing puzzles with progressive difficulty, that is a very difficult game. And in cooperation mode, it requires coordination with a joint resolution. So we can even speak about goal setting here and organization with your partner. Cities Skylines, as you know, with creativity involved with the freedom, obviously, to build an entire city from zero and readapt to solve the problems that city has and presents. That can be very tricky when we are playing, specifically if we have very large cities to manage. Okay. Then we have Counter-Strike Global Offensive, that is also a a Versa video game. It deals with spatial relation and stress management. Counter-Strike is a first-person shooter, and it requires a good stress management to keep the performance up, like I said before in the example of Anomaly 2. Aiming and orienting yourself in a 3D environment with many distractions, always calculating the distance and the bullet effect. So it gets very tricky, and it's very complex in some situations, and if, again, the achievements of Counter-Strike reflect the actions that are needed in those situations, and the player gets the achievement, means that the player has the soft skills enough trained in order to get that achievement. That's the origin of the model, okay? And just to finish, the Overcooked video game, that is it's a very fun video game about cooking in a couch situation with your partners. It is related with cognitive flexibility and organizational skills. Flexibility, in this case, needed in order to adapt to the quick and dynamic scenarios, in order to cook some dishes, because the video game tells you what dish to cook, with a timer, by the way. And also it's required a good organization, order of the elements, steps to take to avoid problems and be efficient, because you have to clean the dishes, you have to cook the tomatoes or the potatoes or something like that, and you have to do it step by step. And for example, the last one, Train Valley, that is associated with time management, problem solving, as you know, with Versa, and goal setting. Precisely, keeping on mind the goal of each train the player has to manage and act on the train track simultaneously, so each train can reach their destination. It gets very tricky, but it's associated with time management, because, like I mentioned before, we can manipulate time, and some achievements takes into account the time variable, and the goal setting, because we constantly need to see what is our goal inside the video game. And here are some specific achievements to see also that was what I was mentioning before, the difference of the achievement. So, for example, in Portal 2, there are 3 achievements. There are a lot of them, but specifically I bring you 3 of them that are, for example, team building. Team building achievements is completing all the test chambers in the team building co-op course. The team building co-op course it's very complete, it's very extensive. So it also involves very conflicts with your partner, because it's not easy to solve a problem with your partner. So you also have to take into account that management of the situation, emotional situation, in order to get the optimal performance. There is, for example, another achievement that is called Triple Crown, that is solve 3 co-op chambers in the mass and velocity course under 60 seconds each. I mean, this is, for example, one of the achievements that has time variable involved, and this achievement will compute in our model into the time management soft skill, and obviously the complex problem solving soft skill, because Portal 2 is a puzzle video game. And for example, Dropbox, that is just place a cube on a button without touching the cube. Okay, so you have all the time here to do that. You don't have to organize yourself, you don't have to manage your emotions, but you have just one problem to solve, that is place the cube on a button above the button without touching the cube through the portal, through the use of the portal. So it's purely related with complex problem solving. And for example, in Train Valley, 3 more achievements: non-stop, that is complete any level on 2, 3, or 4 seasons with pausing the game. It's at the beginning, this might be easy because the game is simple, but at 4th season, for example, there are a lot of stimulus, and it's very difficult not to pause the game just to have 1 second to understand what is going on in the screen. Okay, so if the player did not pause the game and get that achievement, it means that he or she has a lot of soft skills involved to time management, to complex problem solving, to organizational skills involved in these actions. Okay, another, for example, that's my favorite, is Chuck Norris, that is blow up 10 trains and complete the level. That is a difficult one, because everyone can blow up 10 trains at the same level, but you have to complete the level, because I don't know if you know, but when you collide or you have an accident with some trains, you lose money, and if you reach 0, it's game over. So you have to complete the game after blowing up 10 trains. It's a very difficult achievement that computes with a lot of experience of several soft skills. And for example, juggler, that is completing a level with 10 trains running simultaneously without colliding. So it also gets very tricky. And you might wonder why we tell you to play 12 minimum hours in Versa, and that's a question that we made ourselves at the beginning of the investigation, but we just know that for example, all the investigations that I showed you before worked with this time period, and that's several reasons why. Because there is what we call in psychology habituation time. Okay, this habituation time is time that the player needs to understand how the software and the hardware works, meaning that you will have to habituate yourself, so you will have to learn to use your keyboard and your mouse in order to play the video games, and you will have to understand what is the game and what is the game telling you to do basically into the game, you know. So this habituation time, it's not a valid period of time to measure, because it not reflects the real soft skills and the real behavioral performance that the player could have once the player has understood entirely the machine what is interacting with. Another reason that we use the 12 even 20 hours of play is that it means a meaningful training, because if you train for anything in reality from 2 hours to 3 hours, it is very hard to do that meaningful training. But if you train enough, you train 12 hours or 20 hours enough, it involves a meaningful training, and precisely involves that the brain gets bigger, something like that I just mentioned before. Or for example, you have enough time for full stimulation, because some video games at the beginning of the video game stimulate several soft skills, but at the end of the video game they present new mechanics, and they also stimulate another kind of soft skills. So we have to make the possibility, to have to generate the possibility to that to happen. That's why also we tell the people to play that many hours. And replication of other studies, because simply other studies also put on between 10 and 20 hours, even more. That you see, for example, some of the investigations that I showed you before are speaking about 8 weeks of play and 6 months of play that can reach more than 50 hours. But well, we just had to limit into the minimum in order to apply the Versa project. And that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. And now, if you have any questions, we can speak about that.